Welcome everybody to our webinar this morning, part of our WELL network for supporting children, youth and family workers. It's great to have you with us this morning for our webinar on young people, body image and self-esteem. For those of you who've not done a Zoom webinar before but are used to Zoom calls, you will notice it's slightly different in the fact that it's a watch and a listen, in that you can't see other attendees who are here. But you can interact with other attendees via the chat function, and if you don't know where that is, there's a toolbar across the bottom of the screen, and one of the little speech bubbles, it says chat underneath it, and if you click on there then you will be able to interact with other people. We already have a number of people who have been saying good morning to each other, which is lovely to see where you're all from. Do say hello to each other. You just need to make sure that when you start to type your message, just above it where it says to, you need to make sure it says to all panelists and attendees. If it just says to all panelists, it will only be me and Claire who get to see it. But if you put it to all panelists and attendees, then everyone will get to see it. So just make sure you click on that before you send your message so that we can all see it. Feel free to post anything in the chat at any point throughout the webinar. If you want just to make a comment about something that Claire is talking about, feel free to do that. Or if you have a question for Claire, then please post it either in there or in the Q&A function. In either place is fine. And there may be some time at the end of the webinar where Claire will be able to respond to some of those questions. Just to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, so that you can watch it again should you wish to, or tell your friends about it, and it will be on the WELL Learning Hub YouTube channel following on from this webinar. The PowerPoint that Claire uses today will also be made available to you, and we can get that sent to you somehow, but so you will be able to see that again afterwards. We're going to be together for about an hour and a half this morning, but we will have a wiggle break in the middle. So a little chance to have a comfort break and to make a cup of tea for about 5 minutes. So you won't be sitting still for the whole hour and a half. I think that is everything from me in terms of instructions, but I'd just like to take a moment to introduce Claire to you, who is going to be leading our webinar this morning. Dr. Claire Rush is the Mission and Advocacy Enabler for the Girls Brigade Ministries. She's also a Vice President of the Girls Brigade International. Celebrating 127 years of mission and ministry this year, the Girls Brigade partners with churches in 50 countries to reach girls and young women with the gospel. And I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the Girls Brigade. Claire has trained leaders, she's led workshops and delivered keynote speeches in over 18 countries across the world. She's represented the Girls Brigade at a United Nations conference in New York and has spoken about how faith and popular culture intersects in the lives of young people. She's spoken about that on the BBC, UCB and on Premier Radio. Claire's also a volunteer Girls Brigade team leader of a local GB group in Northern Ireland and has been a member of the GB since she was 3 years old. She comes with a wealth of experience and we're so pleased to have her with us this morning to lead us in this webinar. So without further ado, I will hand over to Claire and she can speak to us. Thank you, Claire.
Much, Meg. Thank you so much. It's really great to be with you again virtually. I last led a webinar in September. It was called Thriving After Lockdown. I think that was a little bit of an optimistic title. I hope that you're all doing well in this really uncertain season. Thank you so much for joining as we explore young people and the formation of self-esteem, a really important issue even amidst this kind of pandemic as well. And I just want to say right at the beginning, before we get stuck in, that I am very aware that some of the issues that we're going to explore today are triggering for even some of us as adults. So I just want to give you permission to step away from the screen if you're finding anything too difficult or if it's bringing up issues within your own life. And it is a really uncertain time with this pandemic. So please be kind to yourself. And if you are feeling unsettled at the end of the webinar, I hope that you feel inspired and encouraged. But if you do feel unsettled, I would really encourage you to speak to somebody, your local church minister or another trusted person in your life. Please don't sit with these feelings. But thank you so much for joining us to be equipped on a Friday morning when you're just out of lockdown and you could be doing your Christmas shopping, but you've decided to join. So thank you so much. So I'm going to share my screen. I think, Matt, you're going to have to give me permission to share my screen. Thank you. There we go. And let's get started. So whenever I think about this topic of self-esteem, I always go back to an experience that I had a couple of years ago within my own Girls Brigade group. And it seems like abnormal times when you're sitting face to face with a group of young women, but it was our GB night and we were all together, and a young person brought out a magazine from their bag, and they started chatting about the pictures, about the images in this magazine. And you know, as a good youth worker does, you go fluid with the discussion. So I kind of said to them, you know, I'd be really interested to hear, you know, when you read those magazines, when you go on Instagram, what are the messages that you're getting about what it means to be a girl? And we spent some time writing them down in little bits of paper so that nobody felt that they were being too vulnerable or sharing too openly. And when we opened the little bits of paper, you know, you won't be surprised to hear that some of them wrote that after reading that magazine, after going on Instagram, you know, they don't feel pretty enough, they don't feel thin enough, they don't feel rich enough because they can't afford the clothes and the items in the magazine. But I will never forget what one young woman wrote. She simply wrote, "I don't feel enough. I don't feel enough." And even though hearing those words, saying those words to you, still gets me in my heart, because there are too many young people, girls and boys, that are believing the lies of our culture, that they are not enough just as they are. And that's why you and I, in the front line of youth work, we can be these beacons of hope that can counteract the cultural thieves that are telling them otherwise. We're going to look a little bit further, you know, in a minute. But how do we create that culture of worth within our youth groups? And that's what we're going to be looking at. And the session's split into 3. We're going to be engaging each other about what is the difference between self-esteem and self-worth. There is a difference when we use those terms. We're going to equip ourselves to understand the key factors in the formation of self-esteem and body dissatisfaction. So there's a little bit of psychology there and exploring our identity. And we're obviously going to hopefully empower you to help young people manage their emotional health and how you can create that culture of worth within your youth group and your church. As Meg said, I'm part of the Girls Brigade Ministries group. This is not a webinar publicising our activities, but I thought it'd be helpful for you to know a little bit about what we do. As Meg said, we partner with churches across the UK and the world to really see girls' lives transformed. What that looks like is mostly local community groups led by our trained and equipped volunteers who are investing in girls week on week, normally face-to-face, but a lot of our groups have went online this year, obviously because of the restrictions. And we're involved in a lot of other projects as well. But we're really passionate about seeing young people become all that God created them to be. And that means also understanding their identity and their worth in Christ. So let's move on with our engage section. So if we were face to face, I would be telling you we're going to do a quiz now. And some of you are probably groaning in your screen. Some of you are probably very, very excited. It is a very basic quiz, and since we are online, nobody can see your answer, so that's a win-win, unless you're very competitive and you like to know that you're the winner. But we're going to do this in a fun Zoom way. We're going to do this via the Zoom poll. So Matt's very kindly created our quiz online. So yeah, it's really simple, folks. True or false. I know some of you like to think of the more nuanced answers, but I'm just telling you, go with the gut, true or false. So hopefully Matt, he's just launched it there. I just want you to vote with your gut. True or false, are children becoming unhappier? Does research show that children are becoming unhappier. So you've got literally 20 seconds and then Matt's going to close it. So there's still 2 people haven't voted yet. Oh, we've got one. Great. Okay, thanks so much. We're going to end the polling on that. And you can see, unfortunately, that is a true, isn't it? And we wish that it was false, but unfortunately that is true. Children are becoming unhappier, and that's what the Children's Society Good Childhood Report has stated. So the Good Childhood Report comes out every August, and it's a great way to chart the well-being of children. They surveyed 2,000 children across the UK, so it's a really comprehensive study, and unfortunately they have shown that yes, children are becoming unhappier, and actually even before COVID-19 impacted us, children in the UK were more unhappier than their counterparts. So that's sad. So Matt, can we put up the second question? I'm not going to use the PowerPoint because it's freezing. So that's the first one. So I think whether the second one will launch, maybe it won't. Maybe we've got a gremlin. So let's end that and see. Yes, okay. So boys are less happier than girls. Boys are less happy than girls. What do you think? So go with your gut. Boys are less happy than girls. Okay, so we've got a little bit of division there. Great. Okay, keep going. You've got 7 seconds to vote. And we're going up to 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, very interesting. Good to have a little bit of diversity there. The research from the Good Childhood Report does state that girls are less happy than boys with their life overall, and in particular their appearance and their body image. But that gap has been closing over the last year or two, and boys are less happy in school and with their schoolwork than girls. So there's a bit of nuance there. That's great. Okay, number 3 out of 7. Let's see if we can bring that up. Yeah, having positive self-esteem is about being happy all the time. That's what it means if you have healthy, positive self-esteem. So yes, you're voting quickly on that. Still a few more people to go. 3 seconds to get your votes in. Well done. Okay, yeah, of course. It's not that simplistic, is it? You know, we are human beings. We have a range of different emotions. If we're sad and unhappy, it doesn't mean that we have negative self-esteem. But having positive self-esteem means that when we do feel overwhelmed, when we do feel low, we know how to cope. We've got good coping mechanisms. We've got support networks that we can turn to. So great. Okay. I hope you're having fun with this. Some of you are very competitive. Number 4, the question is, everyone struggles with low self-esteem from time to time. True or false? Everyone struggles with low self-esteem from time to time. So good, great, okay. Another 3 seconds to go. Great. Well, yeah, research shows that our sense of self-esteem does fluctuate from time to time, and actually it can fluctuate from when we're children right up to when we are more mature. It can depend on some of our circumstances and the things that happen to us, but yeah, so it is natural to have a little bit of a fluctuation. It's amazing if you don't experience low self-esteem from time to time. I think that's incredible. And you've got robust resilience and good, strong mental health. So yeah, so it is normal, but what is not normal and what is unhelpful is if we feel we get stuck in a cycle of low self-esteem, which we can't get out of. So the next question, getting all emotional about something is a sign that you've got low self-esteem. So if we find that we're getting all emotional all the time, that means we've got low self-esteem. So yeah, some votes coming in, some people thinking about that one. Okay, got 3 seconds before we're going to stop. Great. Okay. Yeah. Well, I would say personally, it's false, because we are all created with emotions. We're created with a wide range of different emotions, from intense happiness to anger and frustration. And our emotions are helpful. They help us process how we feel about a situation, how we should respond. So if you're crying all the time, it might be because you've got a need that's unmet, so that's an indicator. And it's important with our emotions that we express them in healthy ways. And I think that's what the next question is. Let's get the next question on. It's okay to express how you feel. Is that true or false? It's okay to express how you feel. True or false? It's okay to express your emotions. Got still someone thinking about that one. I like deep thinkers. I like people that think deeply. Yeah, okay. So I'd say if you went to my webinar the last time in September, yeah, we talked about how we need, as to be youth workers, we need to validate all emotions. All emotions are valid and true to the person who's expressing them. Obviously, there is a difference between expressing your emotions in a healthy way and the difference between expressing your emotions in an unhealthy way. And we want to support young people to express their emotions in a healthy way and manage their emotional health. Okay, so the last question had to be COVID-19 related, didn't it? COVID-19 has negatively impacted young people's self-esteem. What do you think about that? Do you think the pandemic has negatively impacted young people's self-esteem? Vote now. Okay. You've got 2 minutes. One person still not sure. COVID-19 is negatively impacted. Yeah, I mean, we are still, there has been some initial research done into the impact of COVID-19 on young people. There's still a lot more to do. But yes, the research that's come out of the Mental Health Foundation, that's come out of Young Minds, that's come out of the Charity Society, has indicated that for some, not all young people, because we do have to introduce the nuance there, for some young people, it has impacted them negatively. So let's think about in different ways how it could have impacted them negatively. Think about a young person who is very achievement driven. That would have been someone, I was very achievement driven when I was a teenager in school. My academic work was where I got a lot of my worth and value from. So you couldn't go to school for a long time. Your exams, you couldn't sit your exams. You were some young people were graded unfairly in the summer. We all remember that debacle. So yes, for someone that is achievement driven, that couldn't sit their exams properly, that would have probably impacted their self-esteem, their idea of worth. Thinking about the future, about future opportunities, thinking about the economy. There's a lot of young people that don't know, will they get any work? What are their career prospects? And then I was speaking to Meg yesterday about Zoom. Think about everything that we've been doing on Zoom. There has been a research done about adults on Zoom that apparently our sense of self-worth and self-esteem has went down as a result of always seeing ourselves on screen. So you might be a youth worker who is doing online Zoom meetings, and you might be so frustrated that most of your youth group don't turn on their camera. But there are a large number of young people and adults that are really struggling with actually seeing themselves all the time on camera, and they're becoming self-critical and they're objectifying themselves, and that basically means they are basing their worth and value on what they believe they look like. So thank you so much for humoring me with the poll. We're going to go back to the PowerPoint if I can get it up. But that was just a little quiz to get you started, get you thinking. This is something that you could do as a discussion starter with teenagers as well. Get to hear their points of view, get to hear their experiences, their views as well. So if you want a wee discussion starter, there's an idea. So, well, let's define, what do we mean when we talk about self-esteem? Self-esteem in a nutshell is about how a person feels about themselves. and their abilities. And it's really important because our sense of self-esteem affects how we think, how we feel, how we act, and it is an indicator of our emotional well-being. And one of the challenges about self-esteem is that it often depends on our perception of what other people think about us. So for many of us, our self-esteem can be rooted in compliments from others, how well we do in our school, how well we do in our jobs, and external circumstances outside of our control. And when I think about myself as a teenager, as I said, I was very academically driven. If I didn't get a top grade, that really impacted my own sense of self and worth. And maybe you identify with that. And the thing about our self-esteem is that it's often based on our emotions and our feelings. And you and I know that our feelings can be very deceptive, can't they? They're not always the truth. And it is important to realize that our self-esteem is not fluid, it's not static, and it can depend on our circumstances and our different life stages, and that is perfectly normal. Now, when I say the word self-worth, what do I mean? Because I like to use the term self-worth, and they are not the same. Self-esteem and self-worth are not the same concepts. Because as I said, for most people, self-esteem does fluctuate throughout our life, but our self-worth never changes because it's not dependent on how we're feeling. It's really about who we are, not what we do. But lots of us don't really understand that, and lots of young people don't understand that they have incredible worth and value, not depending on how many likes they get on Instagram, not depending on what grade they get an exam. So it's about valuing our inherent worth as a person and not measuring ourselves against us. It's really hard, isn't it? Because it is natural in the culture that we live in to compare and contrast. But I love the idea of self-worth because it is a biblical concept. I'm sure some of you have already understood that. In Genesis chapter 1, we have this amazing passage that basically reveals that we are the image bearers of God. Incredible that we have worth and value because we are made in the image of God. So we can build our self-esteem. There are practical things we can do to increase our self-esteem, to manage our negative thought patterns, but we can't build or lose our self-worth because it's inherent. Our self-worth comes from the fact that we're image bearers of the King of Kings. Unfortunately, and I know that not a lot of young people, or some young people, do not really understand that. And I love this kind of concept that our self-esteem really starts with our God-esteem, who we are in Christ, our identity in Christ. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But I love Psalm 139. So I would love to read this to you. I know it's a psalm that we hear a lot, but I'd love you to close your eyes and just listen as I read these words of the psalmist. God, investigate my life. Get all the facts firsthand. I'm an open book to you, even from a distance. You know what I'm thinking. You know when I leave and when I get back. I'm never out of your sight. You know everything I'm going to say before I start the first sentence. I look behind you and you're there. Then up ahead, and you're there too. Your reassuring presence, coming and going. This is too much, too wonderful. I can't take it in. Aren't those wonderful words? And, when I look at Psalm 139, what does that tell me about my self-esteem, my identity? These four powerful phrases: God knows me, God loves me, God is with me, and God delights in me. So our self-worth is based on our identity in Christ. Now, although our self-worth doesn't change, you and I know that we live in a culture which is really depleting the sense of self-worth that children and young people have. And some of you may have read some of Brené Brown's fantastic books, and she really talks about that the enemy of self-worth is shame. And what she describes shame as this intensely painful feeling of believing that we are unworthy of love and belonging. And we are living in a culture that shames a lot of people if they're not living a certain way, not earning a certain amount of money, not looking a certain way, not doing and achieving a certain amount of things. But Psalm 139 reminds us that God knows us, God loves us, God is with us, and God delights in us. So what a powerful message that we can share with young people. But let's go back to some practicalities. Let's think about maybe some of the young people in your group, in your church that you work with. As I said, self-esteem impacts how we think, how we feel, and we act. And the amount of self-esteem we have, it does permeate every aspect of our life. It can impact our relationships. It can impact how we think and behave at school, at university, at work, at youth group. It can even impact our physical health, because it determines what we believe we are capable of, the decisions that we do or do not make, and the risks that we're prepared to take. So I know this is simplistic for our webinar, but I want you to meet David and Katie. These could be two members of your youth group. So let's look at how healthy self-esteem and how negative self-esteem can impact two different people. And you might notice some traits in some of the young people that you work with. Obviously, people are more complex and nuanced than simplistic versions, but I hope this is helpful. So we're going to start with David. So David, you will know that David has a healthy sense of self-esteem. And how do you know this? Well, he will accept praise for what he does right. So he will not deflect praise. You know, when you try to praise somebody and they deflect the compliment, he'll accept it, but he'll also be receptive to constructive criticism so that he can improve and he can learn to be better next time. And he doesn't take that in a defensive way. He'll be aware of his own strengths and weaknesses. He won't engage in self-blaming behavior or negative self-talk. So you won't hear David saying, because he messed something up, I'm really stupid. He's able to process a wide range of different emotions and express them in a healthy way. He will see challenges as opportunities for growth. So he will seize new opportunities. He won't see them as an opportunity to fail. And that means he steps outside his comfort zone. And it means that he has a good sense of his self-worth. So when he does something, he's not proving himself, he's expressing himself. So I wonder, do you recognize some of those traits? Well, what about Katie? So Katie struggles with low self-esteem sometimes. So these are some of the kind of characteristics that you might see somebody exhibit. You know, Katie, when you try to compliment her, she deflects the compliment. You know, oh no, so-and-so did it better, or no, it's rubbish. You know, why are you saying that? But it also means she's very sensitive to constructive criticism, can get quite upset, can be defensive. She'll be hypercritical of herself. You know, if she messes up, I'm stupid. It's not that I did a stupid thing, I'm stupid. Not able to maybe process or express emotions in healthy ways. She really lacks confidence for trying new things, because new opportunities will be, in her eyes, sometimes an opportunity to fail and to look stupid. So then she won't kind of go outside her comfort zone. She looks for her approval and her affirmation in other people. So she's proving herself. And some of her behaviors may be about avoiding failure. You know, it's not because she's not capable, but she's so convinced that she will fail or look stupid that she doesn't do things. So that's maybe why when you have someone in your youth group and they just don't want to join in with that new sporty activity, they don't want to speak out loud, and you're maybe really frustrated, that it could be because they feel that they're going to look stupid and that they have nothing of value to add. And I think maybe some of us identify with this, as adults. Sometimes when I go to meetings, I still sit there and think, what can I contribute to this meeting? How can I show that I have value and worth? So it is ingrained in us from our childhood. But I want to say that, as I said before, people are complex and nuanced. So, for example, if you do have someone that's very shy and quiet in your youth group, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have low self-esteem. And equally, if you've got someone that's really loud and seemingly confident, it doesn't mean that they actually have healthy self-esteem either. They could be using that as a mask to present that to the world. So life is a bit more complicated, but these are some of the traits, some of the behaviors that you might recognize, that you can understand your young people better. So as I said, self-esteem, it's important for us to understand the formation of self-esteem and its development in children and young people. So some very basic psychology coming up. I just want to say too that the formation of self-esteem in our own life, in the lives of children and young people, is very unique, and there is a myriad of different factors that kind of impact it. But it is true that how we think and behave as children does lay down the blueprint for our behavior in later life. And it is really important for us as youth workers, chaplains, volunteers, parents, grandparents, that we understand the different developmental stages of girlhood and boyhood, so we can really help better cater to the needs of children, young people. Now, I'm going to outline some very basic stages. If you love to read, there is books by Dr. Steve Biddulph, a child psychologist, who really outlines these stages in greater detail and also has great tips about, particularly if you're a parent or grandparent, how you can really help encourage children, young people in that development stage. So looking at birth to 2 years old, I've got a little nephew called Ethan, and he is just between 1 and 2 years old. And it's been a really joy to see him kind of grow up and explore the world behind him. But he is so attached to his mom and dad and sister, particularly in this pandemic, where literally his world is those 3 people and his grandmother, because he's not allowed to go out to toddler groups or anything like that. But when children are between these ages, it's a really important stage, because babies are born completely defenseless, but they know instinctively that they need adults around them to love and care for them, because it's not enough just to feed and water a baby, because let's face it, a machine could feed and water a baby, but it's through the positive interactions of adults that a baby comes alive and knows that their emotional needs are being responded to. So the key stage of formation of self-esteem between birth and 2 years old is that answering that question, am I safe and loved? That is fundamental to positive self-esteem, that a baby knows that they are loved and that they are safe. So then going into the 2 to 5 year old stage, and that is maybe, if you're a parent, it's a bit of a nightmare stage, up and walking and talking, but still a joy, isn't it, to see them explore the world and develop this sense of curiosity. And such a privilege for some of us to see this incredible world through their eyes. It gives us wonder. I remember taking my niece Ruby for a walk one day, and she was looking at the leaves every step of the pavement like it was the most amazing thing, and we just walk so quickly we don't look anywhere around us. But yeah, this is an important stage for a child to develop confidence and interest in the world around them. It builds on that secure feeling. If they feel loved and safe, and they know they've got people close to them that's going to care for them, then they can relax and they can check out new toys, they can play in the garden, and they don't have to be so securely attached to their caregivers. But maybe you've noticed that babies who don't feel that secure attachment from their parents, they don't explore, they don't stay far away very much. They don't have that curiosity. So 5 to 10 years old, this is when they begin to realize that the world does not revolve around them, that they're not the center of the universe. They're probably going to start their education, and through primary school they do learn this complex set of skills that they need to value themselves, they need to value others, and they need to treat other people with respect. And then 10 to 14 years old, that's just when they maybe get in their first kind of sense of what is their purpose in this world, what are the things that give them joy, what contribution can they make to the world. And then 14 to 18, stepping into adulthood. Can I take responsibility for my own life? Now, I just want to talk about that stage, particularly with this COVID-19 pandemic, because lockdown, for many teenagers of this age group, lockdown has happened at a really critical stage, hasn't it? Because it's a time when they would be stepping out with more autonomy and kind of more independence, but yet they were told that they couldn't leave their house, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't see their friends, they literally couldn't do anything that they wanted. And for this stage of a young person's life, they are developing their sense of self away from their family. So this would really have impacted, this lockdown would have impacted many teenagers and even their formation of self-esteem as well. I know that was a basic run through, but just to kind of summarize, when we see positive development of self-esteem, we see young people that know that they are loved, that find new experiences and ideas, they find them exciting. They believe that people can be trusted with relationships. They believe they have value, that they have gifts, they have talents, and they can make a positive contribution to the world around them. But if any of those development stages have been disrupted in any way, you might find that when a young person reaches adulthood, they find that life is uncertain. They don't believe that anyone truly loves them. They actually are scared of new ideas and new opportunities because of that lack of secure attachment. And they don't think people can be trusted, and they don't want to get along with people. And unfortunately, maybe some feel they have nothing of value and nothing to contribute to the world. Now, people are complex, as I've said, this is a simplistic look, but it does show how our self-esteem does develop through each of our development stages in childhood and adolescence. So before we go for a break, it is coming up to break time. You've been so good listening. I do always find it strange doing webinars because I do a lot of webinars where I can see people, where we can interact. So I am conscious that you've listened to me for a while. So I want to hear some feedback from you. I've talked about the development stages of self-esteem, but I want to hear from you. What do you think are other factors that can impact self-esteem, either in childhood or in adolescence? What are some of the things that I haven't spoken about yet? I would love to hear your reflections on the chat function. So yeah, we're going to do that. So please do contribute. Use the chat function now, because I'd love to hear from you before we have our break and have some feedback before that, and then I will enable you to have a break. So what do you think are some of the other factors that impact self-esteem in adolescence and childhood? What are some of the things that I haven't mentioned yet? Because I want you to mention, and I want to hear your contributions, because very much we learn from each other. So great. So please use the chat function to share. Hopefully you're still all there. So yeah, we're not going to go on a break yet, Matt, so don't start it yet. I'd love to hear from people in the chat function before we go on a break. Great, so thank you so much. Sorry, I can't see your full names, but I'm just going to read out some of the things that you wrote. Pressure to choose an identity as their body changes and they're uncomfortable in their changing bodies. Absolutely, and there's a lot of gender stereotypes around that does in fact impact children, young people. Being bullied, yeah, and separation of families, absolutely can have an impact. Comparing yourself with older siblings, yeah, comparison, maybe you are a younger sibling, maybe you can identify it. Yeah, looked after children, young people who've been in care and have had a challenging childhood due to family circumstances. Thank you so much for sharing that, Simon. Definitely, that's the attachment theory, isn't it? That when the people you're in your family, when you're obviously in an ideal world, the people closest to you are meant to love and protect you. And when that doesn't happen, that does have an impact. And I have experience of people close to me who had a very traumatic childhood, and when that childhood trauma is not transformed through therapy and help, it is transmitted. So yeah, thanks so much, Sue. Illness in the family, yeah, that can really shake up families. It can make children, young people assume roles of responsibility at an earlier stage, so that can definitely have an impact. Feeling they are a victim, possibly of a crime, and feeling nobody understands. Yeah, absolutely. When young people, when any people feel isolated and alone, loneliness is a really important factor. When they feel they're not heard, when they're not listened to, they feel like an injustice is being done towards them. Absolutely, that would impact your self-esteem. Moving around, changing schools. Yeah, if you're not the personality type that can adapt to change easily, that can form relationships easily, that change can be completely uncertain. And thanks so much, Joanne, feeling that you're not fitting in. And yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about, what are young people and children trying to fit into? What does society want them to be? So thank you so much. We are going to have a 5-minute break, Matt, so you can turn on the 5-minute countdown, and I'm going to pick up some of the things that you've said. I will pick up after the break as we move into looking at external and internal factors. We're going to look at body image, and we're going to look at what can we do, how can we help children, young people in our care. So a lot to get through in the remaining 40 minutes. So please have a quick break. Matt's going to put up the 5-minute counter, because I know that 5 minutes can be different for everybody. So you've got no excuse. 5 minutes is the same for everybody. So enjoy your break, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. Everybody, hope you had a little wiggle break. Maybe you got something nice to eat. If you've got a nice snack, do share about it on the chat function and make everybody jealous. I have to confess, I haven't moved from this seat. But I'm still feeling good. So yeah, thank you so much for your contributions. We're gonna get straight back into it. What we said, what are the factors that impact self-esteem in adolescence? And they're both, as you identified in the chat, internal and external factors. And I just want to pick up on a few more of the external factors, just starting with the idea of, role models are so important, aren't they? And it's really important for us as youth workers, as church leaders, to be role models for young people. I'm passionate about equipping girls and young women to be all that God created them to be. So I'm really passionate about churches and youth groups having these positive female role models, demonstrating that God can use men and women in his mission of restoration. Interestingly, nobody picked up on the kind of technology in the chat. So I just want to talk a little bit about how technology, we talked a little bit about Zoom, but think about the plethora of social media. Whenever I was growing up, we didn't even have Facebook yet, really. It wasn't a thing. It was Bebo. It was kind of pre-Facebook. But social media has just exploded, hasn't it? And I'm one of the people that believe that social media is amoral, that we can use it for positive things and we can use it in negative ways. And it's incredible to live in a culture where we can be more connected than ever. The fact that I can be in Northern Ireland and I can speak to you across the water. But actually, for some of us, we are more connected than ever, but we are not as connected. The screen provides a distance, doesn't it? And it can mean that we don't get those deep, meaningful relationships that God created us to have. And reports vary, but a recent report by NSPCC said that young people between the age of 5 and 16, they spend up to 3 hours online every day. I can only imagine, because of the pandemic, that probably increased considerably. And Emily Cherry, I want to read out a quote from her. She works for the NSPCC. This is what she said in an article in the newspaper recently. I quote, "When it comes to low self-esteem, a lot of young people are putting that down to concerns about education, their future, and the online world. Every time they switch on their phones, they're getting messages about parties they haven't been invited to, or they're seeing photos of their friends doing things, or their whole self-worth is based on how many likes they're getting on their social media, how many loves they're getting on their pictures on Instagram." And you and I know that the life that some of us portray on social media is a very much a created view. It is really the highlight reel of all the great things. But social media is an incredible vehicle for comparison. If you have a personality type that lends itself to comparing people, then it can be a really toxic trap. And it's also a vehicle for young people to get peer approval and to get affirmation. And I'll never forget the night that one young person told me that they take about 40 selfies, and if they want to upload a picture on Instagram, they take about 40 selfies. They will then send their top 3 or 4 to their best friend, and they will ask their best friend to choose the one that they think they look the best in. They will then finally upload it to Instagram, and then if it doesn't get a certain number of loves, likes within a certain time frame, because that is shameful, that's seen as disapproval, they will delete the photograph. So think about that. Think about the whole process that goes in for some of these young people, boys as well, about how they create their life on Instagram. This leads us to talk about body image. I just want to spend some time talking about this, because we do know that it affects young people's self-esteem. And what do I mean by the term body image? It's how we think and we feel about our bodies and our appearance. The Mental Health Foundation, I think about 2 years ago during their Mental Health Week, they focused on positive body image. They did a survey of over 1,000 UK teenagers from 13 to 18 years old. And they discovered that 37% felt upset about their body image. Now, the good news is that 2/3 of young people didn't feel upset, but 37% is still a considerable chunk of young people, and we should be worried and concerned about that. Their research 2 years ago showed that 46% of girls reported that their body image caused to worry more often or always about what they look like, and that was compared to 25% of boys. So it still is, girls are still more concerned about their appearance. But I do believe that we do live in a culture where creating body anxiety in men and about their appearance is becoming more increased, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is. But when we think about the ideal, what is society? We talked about society's messages can impact our self-esteem. So what is the message from society about how a woman and a man, how an attractive woman and man should look like? I don't know if some of you know who these people are. If you do know who these people are or where they're from, impress us all with your pop culture knowledge, and you can pop it in the chat function. But these are contestants from Love Island. I don't think they're the most recent contestants, so I'm not completely up to date. But Love Island, the reality TV show that has really taken millennials and teenagers by storm, one of the most watched reality TV shows in the UK, normally happens over the summer months. Didn't happen this year. Maybe that was a positive with the COVID-19 pandemic. But whenever it's on, that my GB group are always talking about Love Island. They're always talking about the women's bodies and comparing themselves to the bodies that they see on screen. And you and I know that this is a very narrow ideal of what is beautiful. It's very unrealistic ideal. And actually many of the contestants on Love Island have actually had plastic surgery, so they do not look like this naturally. It's when that, if you ever watch Love Island, that there has been an increase in the number of plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery advertisements in the ad break. So it's really creating that culture, which is the Love Island effect. And there is pressure for both men and women to meet this unrealistic ideal that women should be thin but yet very curvy, that men should be muscular and very well built. So I hope that my internet connection didn't go there. I got a little thing on my screen, so I hope you can still hear me okay. But we do know that young people feel increasing pressure to look a certain way, and they are internalizing the messages that surround us in society. Like, there is research that's been done about the amount of advertisements we see every day. You know, shockingly, when you're waiting for the bus, when you're watching TV, when you're on the internet, and these advertisements all communicate certain ideals about what we should be like as women and men. So I'm going to talk about a couple of these images. The bottom left-hand corner, some of you will know that is Beyonce. And this image really illustrates the fact that photoshopping is really common. It is absolutely, I think most images are now photoshopped from what we see. And these celebrities do not look like this naturally. They've been enhanced using software. You can see that Beyonce's chin line has been sharpened. Her skin has been made more smooth, and even actually her skin has been lightened. There's a lot of controversy about some of the way Black women are portrayed, because their skin has been lightened to kind of meet that ideal. What I want to point to you, what I want to share with you now, is that Instagram, Snapchat allows young people to Photoshop themselves, to create images that is not the reality. And I was reading an article this week about catfishing, about these Instagram influencers who displayed real pictures about themselves. They look completely different. So young people now have the power to do that to themselves and to compare themselves with others. The bottom right hand image is was a couple of years ago, and these were obviously at the time two of the most powerful leaders in the UK. Theresa May was Prime Minister then. They were the most powerful women leaders, and look at what the biggest selling newspaper in the UK said. Never mind Brexit, who won Legit? That idea that no matter what a woman achieves, no matter her status, that actually her worth and value is based on what she looks like. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit later. But we do need to be aware that a lot of us, including us, we are really gorging on junk food in terms of the messages that we allow to seep into our head about what we should be, what we should act like, what we should do, what we should look like if we want to kind of adhere to this societal ideal about femininity and masculinity. And it affects us, and it's really difficult because this culture is all around us. But I want to talk a bit about girls and young women, because I do believe that society does teach girls in particular that their bodies are projects to be worked on, that their body is never enough as it is. They could always have longer hair, they could always have straighter teeth, they could always have longer eyelashes. And this image was from a summit a couple of years ago called Endangered Species. And I just think this is really shocking to me. Is this the happiest she'll ever be about her appearance? Because she's not aware of the messages that surrounds us. And not really, this idea that our worth and values and what we look like is seen through that Theresa May and Nicola Sturgeon front page. They were two of the most powerful leaders in the UK, in the world in terms of female leaders, and they were being judged. You wouldn't see Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings judged on what their legs look like. It just wouldn't happen. But I do want to say that I do believe also that there is a lot of body anxiety in boys now as well. And this is mainly because corporations know that if they exploit body anxiety, that they make more money. So of course they're going to exploit that in males as well, because they want more cash. And this was an advert that went around the London Underground a couple of years ago. You may remember, "Are you beach body ready?" It's obviously promoting weight loss pills. And I just loved the people that pushed against it. And they basically said, I don't know about you, but if you have a body and you're on a beach, you are beach body ready. But it is important for us to recognize that we are against a culture that makes a lot of money about exploiting our anxiety about our body image. And this really starts from a young age. And you can see that for yourself in the culture that surrounds us. And it does impact self-esteem, although this research is nearly 4 years out of date. The Girl Guides do a fantastic annual survey, and that was in 2016. 47% of girls said that the way they look holds them back most of the time. That means they weren't playing sports. They didn't want to go swimming. They didn't want to have their photograph taken. It meant that they were less likely to put their hand up in class and contribute. They were less likely to take opportunities. So this is a problem. And as I said, I do believe that boys' self-esteem is closely coming behind. Just before we move on and look at what are some of the solutions, what can we do? That's so important. I just also want to just mention the influence of parents and peers in terms of body image. Parents, family members, carers can have an impact on a young person's body image. One study of adolescent girls found that over half had experienced weight-based teasing from family members. And these experiences were related to higher levels of body dissatisfaction and unhealthy eating behaviors. And this extends to the way we as trusted adults and carers and parents, how we think, act and speak about our own bodies. So it is important, some children are growing up in a house that really does promote diet culture, where parents are visibly on diets. They're commenting about their weight or their lack of weight loss. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be healthy, and there's nothing wrong with losing weight for health reasons, but we do need to be mindful of the culture that we're creating in our house. When we're talking about bad foods and good foods, young people and children are listening to that, and at a time when they're forming their identity, this is impacting them as well. But it's hard. I understand that's really difficult, but this does impact. So we need to be mindful and careful. And also peers, as children grow older, their peers begin to have more of a role in reinforcing what their ideal body looks like. So a survey of Be Real of the UK found that 11 to 16-year-olds found that over half of young people had experienced appearance-based bullying. That was over half had been bullied about their experience. And 40% of those young people experienced bullying at least once a week. And 54% said that the bullying had started by the age of 10. So yes, so what can we do? How can we help cultivate this sense of worth, that's building youth groups that help young people gain strategies to deal with emotions? How can we do this? And how can we do this over Zoom? I don't know if I have the answer to that since we're not all face to face, but I'm going to try and help you. And I'm sure that you've got some ideas. I would love you to share some of the stuff on the chat function if you find helpful, if you've done some different, because I really believe that peer learning is really great too, and that we can learn from each other. So we don't live in a world which fosters worth. That's what we've been exploring. So we do have to be countercultural when our culture tells that people's values are defined by what they look like, what they do, how much they earn, what their academic achievements are, how many likes they get on social media. These are paradoxical messages that subvert their God identity as image bearers of God with unchanging value and worth. So I really do believe that identity theft is happening right here and right now, and we have to take action. So one of the things, a practical thing, if people like resources, I really advocate for the Be Real campaign, and you will get a link to this in the email, follow-up email after. This is a media literacy kind of resource website. So what do I mean by media literacy? Well, we've seen the influence, haven't we? We've talked about the influence that the media has in creating these gender stereotypes, creating these cultural ideas about how we should act, think and look like. So we need, in a really practical way, to equip children, young people to not be passive consumers of the media, but to be critical consumers of the media, and particularly in the area of body image. And the body confidence movement, it can be a bit controversial, but on a basic level, body confidence is when someone accepts, appreciates and thinks and behaves positively in relation to their body and appearance. So I would say on a basic level, body confidence is when you stop critiquing your body for what it looks like and celebrate your body for what it does. You can walk, you can run, you can hike, you can swim, you can go from A to B, you can use it to help people. For me, I like that kind of definition, that being body confident means I stop looking in the mirror and critiquing what I don't like about my body, and instead I turn that into what I'm thankful about my body, that it can help me walk, that it can help me visit people, it can help me go to GB, it can help me walk up a mountain. And that's what I would really love to see more young people do. So like, if you're worried about body image, you're taking maybe your parent or a grandparent, a carer, and maybe you're a youth worker, these are some really helpful top tips in your youth groups, in your homes, about what you can do to really increase body confidence in your home. So for example, things to avoid, like just stop discussing people's weight and appearance. Stop using languages that focus on weight. Stop talking about good food and bad food. And maybe even though you might be exercising, you might be dieting, that's okay if you're doing that for health reasons, but stop making that a real kind of focus that it consumes all the conversation. Instead, there are other things that you can do. Encourage people to be active and eat healthily. Focus on individual strengths and qualities other than their appearances. Challenge media images of the perfect appearance, those Photoshop images. So like, these are some of the things, even within your youth group, when you hear young people talking in those negative ways, that you can change and shift the conversation. So this is the website. They've got a campaign toolkit. They've got lots of great resources that you can use, and I think you'd enjoy looking at the website. Now, I do want to go in a little bit of psychology, because a lot of our self-esteem, people with low self-esteem can find themselves in really debilitating negative thought patterns, okay? So that's why it's really good for us as trusted adults who are volunteer and youth workers. It's good for us if we're mentoring young people like that, if we're doing group work, that we can be aware about helpful ways that we can challenge negative thought patterns. Like, maybe some of you will recognize some of these negative thought patterns, so it might be helpful for you on a personal level. It's been really helpful for me. It is based on CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which I've been through a couple of times. So it's really good for us to understand how our thoughts affect our actions and our behavior. So I'm just going to take you through some very, very basic. As I said at the beginning, self-esteem impacts how we think, how we feel about ourselves, and this leads us to act a certain way. So on a basic level, how we think about ourselves leads us to feel a certain way about ourselves, which leads us to act a certain way. So, for example, if I give an example, if I feel stupid, then I'm going to start feeling maybe that I'm unworthy, that I don't have value, I don't have anything to contribute. So therefore, when I go to my next Zoom meeting, I'm going to be silent and I'm not going to contribute anything out of the fear that I've got nothing to contribute. So you can see that how we think about ourselves leads us to feel a certain way about ourselves, and this can impact how we act, and it can obviously help. It can also do that in the young people that we work with. Now, we do have two types of different thoughts. The first thoughts we have are deeper thoughts. These are general assumptions or rules that we have about ourselves, other people, and the world around us and our future. And then we have our everyday thoughts. So these are thoughts we have every single day in response to specific situations that we go through. So our deeper beliefs can be realistic and positive and healthy, or they can be unrealistic and overtly negative. And how do we develop either, positive or negative deeper thoughts? As I said, it can go back to our blueprint from childhood, our formation of self-esteem, internal, external influences. But adolescent and childhood is the key, because over time our beliefs become fixed. Our deeper thoughts become fixed belief, and we focus on evidence that supports them and dismiss evidence that challenge them. So for example, I know from experience and people close to me, some of the deeper thoughts that people had about themselves were that I am a failure. I don't have worth or value. So these are some of the hardwired deeper thoughts that from our childhood experiences through our adolescence that become hardwired in our brains. And if you have thoughts like that, then any evidence that supports these thoughts, you're going to latch onto, and you're going to dismiss anything that challenges them. Even when someone gives you a compliment, or even when you accomplish something, it really won't make a difference, because these deeper thoughts are fixed. And these deeper thoughts become our compass. They really do. And if we have a fully working compass, i.e. we have positive and realistic deeper beliefs that we believe that we have value and worth, that we have a contribution to make, then it will help us navigate life in a more positive way. But when we have a broken down compass, when our deeper beliefs are telling us that we are stupid, we have nothing of value to add, then that guides our everyday thoughts. They're more likely to be negative. So this is what I mean in terms of self-esteem, why young people develop that low self-esteem. And then we find ourselves in this cycle of thoughts, of everyday thoughts. Some of them could be, I need to be perfect to be liked and accepted. So that perfectionism, I can't fail, so I'm not going to take any new opportunities, because that means I might not be perfect, and therefore people might stop liking me, or they might not accept me. If things go wrong, if I fail, it means I'm not good enough. Failure, as you and I know, failure is completely natural. And when we look at some of the most amazing entrepreneurs in the world, they failed many times before they succeeded. And failure is part of the learning process. If other people see the real me, they will reject me. I'm a failure, and other people think the same. So these are some of the cycle of negative thoughts. And I do have to say that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and maybe some of these thoughts are really resonating with you as well. I just want to say that it's completely natural to feel unsettled and uncertain during this difficult time when nothing is certain. So please be kind to yourself. But if you do feel that you're in a cycle of negative thought patterns and you cannot get out of it, I would really encourage you to seek the help of your doctor, who can introduce you to CBT therapy and other ways in which you can challenge these negative thoughts. Because that's what I want to bring the hope to you, that if young people's compasses are broken about their deeper thoughts and beliefs, it can be fixed. We can rewire our brains. We don't have to always accept that that's what our brain is going to think. We can challenge it. And I would really encourage you to seek help. But these are some of the things, the everyday thinking errors that some of us experience, and particularly some young people who are struggling with their self-esteem. They have all or nothing thinking. So it's like thinking in absolute terms or black and white terms. So it's like, I am a failure, black and white. There's no in the middle. There's no that, okay, I failed at this activity, but I tried really hard and that's a real success. I failed, that is it. Catastrophizing, that's when our thoughts jump to the worst case scenario. So I'm not going to try this new activity because I'm just going to fail and I'm not going to be able to do it and everyone's going to laugh at me. that's catastrophizing. Mind reading, that girl or boy is thinking that I look really fat in this dress. I shouldn't have worn this dress. Or they think that what I just said was really, really stupid. Like, look at the look in their face. We don't know what other people are thinking, but someone that does the mind reading everyday thinking error just makes negative assumptions. Unrealistic expectations, thinking about yourself in terms of I should, I must, I have to. And maybe we during this pandemic are putting a lot of unrealistic expectations on ourselves. So as you can see, if we're having these negative thoughts, they are affecting our feelings about ourselves. And we might start then acting in self-defeating ways in response to these thoughts and feelings. So these are some of the things that you might notice this behavior from people in your youth group. So like, a young person that has unrealistic and overtly negative, deeper beliefs, who has these everyday thinking errors and feeling very negative about themselves, they may display avoidance behavior. So therefore, they won't try that new activity because they're going to avoid feeling. They're perfectionists. They're going to try and please people all the time. The kind of aggressive behavior as well, the attention-seeking behavior. And these behaviors have short-term benefit, but long-term disadvantage. So they focus on their flaws, they sabotage progress, and they stop us really from living life to the full. So what can you do about it? Well, I've kind of educated you a little bit about these thought patterns. But what you can do, if you hear a young person speak like this, if you're mentoring somebody one-to-one, if you're in a group setting, you could ask them these questions. When you were feeling like this, what was going on around you? How were you feeling? What were you thinking? What did you do? Did it work? What else could you have done? So by doing these like questions, you can do these, you can download this sheet. There's lots of other sheets on the internet. By asking these questions, you're helping them process these thoughts. You're helping them think rationally about these thoughts. You're helping them see how their thoughts connect to their feelings and their behavior. And you're giving them alternatives about actually what could they have done differently and how that could have worked out. But the biggest, most simplest question when you hear someone in a cycle of negative thoughts or actions is asking this question, through those other questions. Are your thoughts based on evidence or feelings? Where is the evidence that you are a failure? Where is the evidence that you don't have worth or value? Or is it based on your emotions? And we already talked about that our emotions are deceptive. You're also going to help them think about a more realistic thought. You're going to help them challenge those everyday thinking behaviors. Now, I know I did this really fast, and you will get the PowerPoint notes to look at. You will get the webinar to look at again. But I know a lot of you are in mentoring, one-to-one, small group work. This is a really powerful activity that you can do. There are books online on CBT that you can download, but helping a young person challenge their negative thought patterns in the context of a youth group, in a context of a mentoring relationship, can be really powerful. But you are not a psychologist or a therapist. I just want to confirm that. Some young people may need professional help, but you can, as a trusted leader, help them rationally think about their thoughts and their feelings. So what about building this culture of worth in our youth groups? What can we do? I've got 5 ways that some of the things that I implement within GB and within my own GB group is to kind of inspire this culture of worth. As we said, we can't give self-esteem to a young person, but we can inspire them to cultivate it, to think more about the bigger picture. But we've already said at the beginning that each of us has worth and value, regardless of what we look like, regardless of our gender, our age, our race, and our ability. And this is the hope-filled message that Jesus has brought to us, and he's calling us to follow in his footsteps. So I love this idea of building a culture of worth and value in our youth groups. Now, I know it's a bit more challenging because we're online, but I love this concept. Within my youth group programs, I always think about this concept of cultivating what I call identity capital. We know that I am not enough is one of the negative core beliefs. So that core belief, when we're talking about those negative, deeper thought patterns, I am not enough is a common one for many young people, and maybe some of us as well. We don't feel like that we're enough. And I really think it's really, we get a lot of people and organizations saying that we need to empower girls, with body confidence, and that's all well and good. But if you work particularly with girls and young women who are struggling with society's expectation about what is beautiful, and we quote verses like Psalm 139 to them, or Ephesians 2 verse 10, they just kind of maybe roll their eyes. It's really difficult for a young person to believe that they're God's masterpiece when they're struggling with an eating disorder or body dysmorphia. But we do know that the Bible teaches our worth is not dependent on how thin we are, what we look like, or how rich we are. It does come from being the image bearer of a king and king of kings. And that's what I love about cultivating that sense of culture within the group, where our worth is based on who we are, not what we do. And I'd love to challenge you to think about that. How are you creating that culture within your youth group that honors young people and leaders for who they are, not what they do? And here's some kind of tips, some more practical tips about how to do that. I really spoke about the importance of media literacy. We have powerful identity thieves in our culture, in social media, in movies, in Instagram, in magazines, in the music industry, in diet culture. It's surrounding us that our value is for some of us and what we look like. That is the message that we are very commonly receiving. So being able to equip young people to be critical consumers of media, to question that photograph, to understand why do they feel worse when they go on Instagram, to question the reality of what they're seeing, that is really powerful. So developing media literacy through resources like the Be Real resource site is really, really powerful, helping young people think critically about what they're seeing and what they're hearing and how that's making them feel. The holistic development, how are we helping young people develop their God-given gifts? And that's what I love about Girls Brigade. We journey with girls from the age of 3 right up to 18 and beyond. They get a safe space to be invested in by our amazing volunteer leaders who journey with them. Like, I had a leader that journeyed with me from when I was 4 years old right up to I was 18 years old. Like, that was a trusted female role model who invested in me. She helped me discover my leadership gifting. She helped me understand my worth and value was not and what I look like. She helped me discover Jesus. And I'm really passionate about seeing young people develop their leadership gifting. So in your youth group, how are you developing the generation of leaders of now? How are you empowering young people to lead the youth group, to use their gifts to really make a positive contribution? I just want to say, if you want to hear more about GB Ministries and what we do, please come and join. Please email me. The email's on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to host a very informal call on Thursday, 17th December, where we can talk a little bit about what we're doing to build hope in communities and the different projects. So that's just if you want to hear a little bit more. But one of our resources that's completely free is called Coco. It's called Keep On Keeping On. And this is our award-winning vlog where we have developed a lot of powerful videos. They're done in spoken word pieces, really powerful visuals. We spent a lot of money making these videos. And the idea is that young people would share these videos on their own social media. So they would create a positive noise on social media, a more hope-filled noise. And the website is thecocostory.com. And we've got films on friendship, on loss, on self-harm, relationships and sex and kindness. And these are all like 2-minute, 3-minute spoken word, highly stylized videos. And they're perfect for school assemblies, youth group discussions, even on Zoom, to get people talking. And they're all available free from that website, so you can download them. And the other thing I want to say is, particularly for girls, as I mentioned, the culture around us says that for many girls that their values and what they look like, not what they do, not what they achieve, not their personalities, not their giftings. And it is really important that we raise up and mentor and profile women into leadership roles within our youth groups, within our churches. And I want to really encourage you to think how you're doing that, because girls can't be what they don't see. So do think carefully about when you're having leadership conferences or leadership equipping. Do you have an equal number of boys and girls if they're suitable for that leadership role? Are you thinking about when you lead a youth service, are there women leading parts of it as well? Or is the default position always asking boys to do that? I'll never forget being at a conference where the organization was really supportive of women leadership, but all the speakers were men. They just hadn't thought about it. And the message that communicated to the women in the room was quite horrific. But as I said, they were completely supportive, but they hadn't thought their default position. Another thing we can do in the homes is that if we've got girls in our family, think about the language that we use when we talk to girls. Do we always tell girls that they're pretty and that they're beautiful? Think about what are the other compliments that we could tell children, that they are curious, that they're really brave, that they're really smart. Just think carefully about the language, because actually, although girls and boys are beautiful and pretty, always defaulting that compliment teaches them from a very young age that their value is in what they look like. So yeah, just how are you raising hope for girls within your context? How are you being mindful of your language and the opportunities that you're making available? And I'm really passionate, I'm sure you are, of seeing young people really affect change in the world. And we've been talking about a lot of injustices today, particularly within our culture. And I do believe that our role is to help transform those injustices, that we don't just leave it to young people or girls or women, but actually this generation, as you know, are an incredible generation of hope bringers and transformers. So let's do all we can to help them be a force for change within their peer groups, within their communities, within their churches. So that is introducing those ideas of negative thought patterns, helping them challenge those negative thought patterns and helping them challenge that in the friends around them, but also implementing systematic change, helping them campaign and find their purpose for things that they're passionate about to make a real difference, to use their God-given gifts to make a real difference. I realize that this has been a very fast webinar and we've run out of time. These are some other links, particularly around mental health, self-harm. Beat is an eating disorder website as well, that you can find if you know you've got a young person in your youth group that is experiencing maybe a more challenging destructive behavior than what we had time to talk about today. I just want to say thank you so much for joining. It has been a whirlwind. Your role is not to be a therapist or psychologist, but you have an incredible opportunity as a trusted adult to journey alongside children and young people and to help contribute to their formation of identity and self-esteem, to challenge negative thought patterns and to really help them cultivate a sense of worth that will stand up against the identity thieves that are in the culture around us. And I just want to say at the end, you know, that it is a challenging topic and many of the things that I've shared, I identify with as well. And I just want to say that I just want to thank you for all that you're doing to journey alongside young people. It is incredible. You are on the front line punching holes in the darkness. I really do believe that. And sometimes when we're so close to the darkness, we really need to put our defenses up. We need to really put on the armor of God. We need to really trust in God. And I pray that for you. And I pray that you know who you are in Christ, that you are redeemed, that you are loved with an endless love, as it says in Jeremiah 31, that you're chosen, and in Isaiah, I have called you by name and you are mine, that you are forgiven, that you have been called for such a time as this. So thank you so much. It's been a privilege to be with you. And I'd love to just pray quickly before we officially end. Father, thank you so much for this time together. Lord, we just Thank you for each of the children and young people that are in our care, Lord, within Girls Brigade and the Methodist Church in Great Britain and worldwide. Father, these children and young people are so precious. They are made and formed by you. They are loved by you. You delight over them. And Lord, our heart breaks for the culture that we live in that surrounds us with these identity thieves that would seek to really deplete their sense of worth and value, Father, and just help us speak the words of hope and truth and light that they need to hear, Lord. But help us lean on you to do that, to not feel that we're up against defeat, because you are victorious. And Lord, I pray for every person, every man and woman on this call, for who they are in you. I pray that today they would feel filled up by you, that they would feel that their identity and their worth and value is found in you. I pray against any negative comments from others. I pray against anything that happened in childhood and adolescence. I pray against this pandemic that's created anxiety. Lord, I pray that you would really protect people's minds today, protect our mind, help us focus on the truth and not the lies. Lord, thank you for these men and women who have devoted their life to investing in girls, young women, boys, and young men, Lord. I pray that they feel your delight in them, that they feel your love for them. And I pray this in your name. Amen. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully get to see you, some of you, at this event. We're going to hand back over to Meg.
I just say, on behalf of us all, thank you so much, Claire, for your wisdom that you've offered to us this morning. I know that I have learned a great deal from listening to your presentation this morning, and looking at the comments that have come in on the chat. Other people have obviously found it incredibly useful too. So thank you for being with us. Just to remind you, if you wanted to watch that again, as Claire said, there's a lot of information in there. If you want to watch it again, it's going to be on the Well Learning Hub YouTube channel shortly. We will upload it onto there, and there'll be all the links that Claire has talked about will be underneath that video as well. Claire will be leading another webinar for us in January, on the 26th of January, which is on quite a different theme altogether. It's about, it's called Rhythms of Grace, Soul Care and Leadership, and it's around exploring some practical tools to enable you to prioritize intimacy with God in your leadership and life. And I'm sure many of you will know how difficult it is to be a leader with children and young people and invest in your faith at the same time and to look after yourself. So there'll be a webinar all around that. So please do sign up for that. The way to sign up to it is if you go to the Methodist Church website, you go to the Children, Youth and Family section, there's a box you can click on called Upcoming Events, and all of our webinars that are happening in January and February are listed there. So do go and have a look. That just leaves me to say thank you so much for joining us this morning, for taking part, for joining in with the chat. If there's any follow-up training that you think would be really helpful to have a webinar on, that's maybe something you've been thinking about for a while, or something that's been sparked by what Claire has said today, please pop it in the chat before you go, and we'll take that on board when we are planning our kind of series of webinars next year. So just put in there anything you think that would be useful for you to have some training on. But that's all from us for today. We look forward to seeing you hopefully in future webinars, but do take care of yourselves and look after yourselves, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.